brilliant to see so many of you here. Thank you for taking the time today. It's our April email surgery. So today there are a few things that we wanted to go through with you. The first is we wanted to give you some inspiration from the current work that we're doing, particularly in this case with the Kite team, and showing you the overall summary of the marketing plan that we've put together for the rest of the year and how that breaks down into the different channels against their objectives. So we're going to walk through that with you. We're also going to talk to you again, just to remind you about the modular email templates. We're going to show you some updates and some branded versions that we've got ready now and are actually going to start to be used very, very soon, as well as our webinar sub templates. And again, showing you how they've been used in real life and what they actually look like with live content. So trying to bring that to life a little bit for you all. And then I wanted to talk to you today about mobile devices and considering mobile audiences, and particularly having a little look at some statistics that we've got around the Gilead audience and what we need to be thinking about when we're briefing our agencies, when we're looking at designs that come back to us, just to give you a few little pointers to think about from a mobile point of view and how emails will view on those devices. And of course, at any time, please do ask questions, stop me, just unmute yourself and stop me. That's absolutely fine. And of course, at the end, if you've got more questions, that's fine as well. Does that sound good to everyone? Excellent, excellent. We've got a little bit of a mix today. So let's jump straight in and show you what we've been working on with Kite. So I don't think any of the Kite team are on with us today, but that's fine. I can talk you through. So the key challenge that Kite were facing is that there were a number of marketing plans for the first half of this year, but we really wanted to expand the reach of some of those messages and to look at what we were going to do for the second half of the year and make sure that we had a good spread of different channels based on what it was that we wanted to put out to our audience and how we wanted that to land with them. So we didn't have kind of any overall summary plans, nothing that brought it all together. There was some great pieces of information and individual elements around webinars and some other great initiatives, but nothing that brought it all together into one. So that's what we were tasked with doing. Now, Kite had a fantastic starting point because they have a really clear idea, as you can see on the slide, of their objectives and what they're working towards from their plan of action for the rest of the year. What do they want to achieve? So from those strategic objectives, we picked out the key pieces of content, the key talking elements that we might need to be putting out to our audience, and then started our plans. But of course, when we started them, we needed to make sure that we were really aligned not only with the strategic objectives, but what we wanted to achieve from the project. So the first thing, and all of these objectives link heavily into the work we've been doing with Terry and the work that Terry's been doing for that overall digital strategy. So these very much align with that as well. So increasing the number of marketing touch points, making sure that we have consistency, using the Gilead database that we've got. And of course, again, as part of another project that Terry's working on, we're looking at driving more consents for the teams as well, outside of SPLs as well. We also wanted to extend that marketing reach and have a look at what were the channels that we were using, how were we pushing that message out, what were most appropriate, when, and how were they going to be used, and different thought processes between different types of marketing. So that was our first objective, do more, be more consistent, make sure we've got that consistency in our message going out. But of course, whilst we're doing that, we also want to try and get a little bit more targeted. We want to use our data more effectively. And I'm going to show you some examples of a few ways that we've started to put this into our plans. Now, as we all know, we can't run before we walk. So getting consistency, getting those emails sending out, getting those plans in place, for example, are the starting point, and we can build on that. And as we grow our data that we know on how people engage with the emails, for example, we can again start to adapt that plan as we go. So we can have a little bit of flex with what we've got. So whether that data is used more effectively in targeting a specific audience, and again, I'll show you an example for Kite, or if it's triggering follow-ups based on engagement or non-engagement, that's what we want to start getting into our plans to be a little bit cleverer with what we're doing wherever we can. And our third objective was to really optimize our efforts through our feedback and analysis. So making sure that we are looking at those results coming back, what they're telling us, where the changes are, so that we can use that to then adapt our messaging, adapt our strategy as we're going forward. And of course, doing testing as well, and making sure that we've got a strategic testing plan in place so that everything we look at can not only be used for that one email or that one banner, for example, it can actually be used for future campaigns to learn what works and what doesn't work for our audience. Does that all make sense so far? Excellent. So that's where we were really targeted. And after a lot of back and forth, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of pulling different pieces of information from different places, what we came up with was this starting plan for us to cover the rest of the year. And of course, from this, we can now move into next year. So you can see that down on the left-hand side, we've broken it up based on the strategic objectives so that we know everything we're doing is always coming back to one of those to make sure that we're linking in to where we want to get to. Within each of those strategic objectives, you also have the content piece or the focus area that we're going to look at, and then by the months, when the emails are going to send. So we've got email invites and follow-ups. We've got case studies that are going to be available for other brand messaging, but also in Viva approved emails. And I'll talk to you about those in a moment as well. So you can see here, for example, with Yes Carter and Tocatus, the two brands that we've got here for Kite, you can see something that we didn't have before. And this is a series of 3 brand messages for each of those two, which gets the key messages out there that we want to remind people of, that we want to reinforce with people, and we want to help people move through to that next stage of actually referring or actually treating with these medications. Okay, so there's quite a lot there. The dark green is generally emails. The light green is generally email follow-up. So whether that's a resend to non-openers or if it's a send only to people who've engaged with the previous emails, as you can see down here for Tocatus. So this third email that's about when to start flagging a patient will only be sent to those people who opened or clicked on the previous two and have shown an interest in that subject. So where we can, we're starting to get a little bit cleverer. Now you can also see we've got some banner ads in here, and I think banner ads are really interesting to talk about. You know, they're not going to be massive drivers of traffic to your website, but they are fantastic for brand awareness, and they're a key part of your strategy to have those touch points. So it used to be, I think, 7 to 9 touch points before someone will even consider doing something with you. I think it's about 27 now. So we've got to make sure that when people are going to publications that are relevant to the brands that we're advertising, the information we want to put out, that we've got a presence where we can to back up the other messaging that we're pushing out through Marketo, through our consented database, through One Health as the third-party database, or through the rep-triggered Viva-approved emails. So don't forget, when we're talking about email, we have 3 strands available to us for Kite that we can use. Is there any questions on that so far? Does that all make sense? Good. Hopefully that's a good sign then. Brilliant. So the other colors on here, so obviously you've got banners in red. Anything in yellow is we're not sure about it yet. We think it might be happening. We think it might happen at this time, but we're not 100% sure. So we've kind of penciled those bits in so we're aware of them, but they're not high priority right at this moment. And then the blue boxes are data-driven personalized emails. So you can see these here. So under the Kite value proposition for the strategic imperative 1, we've got specific campaigns that are targeted to RTCs, that are referral treatment centers, DTCs, delivery treatment centers, for these two brands. So we're going to split the messaging because they have different needs, different pieces of information that they would want to know about. And what we're looking into at the moment with those blue boxes is a monthly summary roundup. I'll show you some examples of those in a moment. But effectively pulling the data from the Kite Connect portal, where everything is booked and run through and scheduled, to pull that data back into the emails to say, hey, this is what's happened over the last 6 months, over the last 12 months. I'll show you some examples of those in a minute. So we're investigating that possibility at the moment. So this is the overall summary plan that includes everything. Now, if we break that down, as we mentioned, we are working with One Health Communications to do those third-party emails to reach an audience that we don't have. So we've taken that summary plan and we've split it down to what are the key messages that we'd like to send out through One Health. Now, again, what you can see here is that we're trying to make the most of our resources. If we're creating a key message, we want to make sure that it goes out through all the avenues it can, especially when we're going through approvals and reviews and all of that process as well. So we're trying to link in where we can, and of course, excluding anyone that we're talking to from that One Health Communications database so that we're not doubling up on the messages going out. So we've got that breakdown. And then we've also got, and this is still in draft a little bit more, but again, using the most of their resources. So this is looking at Viva approved emails. So from the messages that we want to put out in our overall plan, are there fragments, so pieces, modules that could be created in Viva that could be pulled in by the reps into other emails? Or are there whole emails that we'd like to create to allow the reps to have that in their suite of documents and suite of emails that they can pull from when it's most appropriate to send that out? Because of course, Viva works best when it's rep triggered. And the next stage on from this, and the teams I know are starting to talk to James at 28B, who'll be supporting with that life cycle model for what should be sent when by the reps through Viva approved emails. So that's kind of the next stage of the project. But we wanted to make sure, again, make the best use of those resources. We don't want to be doing stuff multiple times. So while we're writing content for a brand message, let's use that in Viva, in One Health, in Marketo, for our banner imagery, whatever it is that we need to connect that together. Make sense so far? Everyone still with me? Excellent, fantastic. So let me go back to those objectives that we talked about initially. And that first objective was increasing the number of marketing touch points. Now, having the reps in the center of everything is so important. So what we're doing is we're driving more consents. We're looking at individual areas that we can push those messages out through different channels in slightly different ways, because again, don't forget, anything going through Viva is a one-to-one communication. So how we design that, how you write that, the tone of voice, although it's the same messaging, may be slightly different. So we can adapt as we go. But bringing in multiple channels, and of course, different kind of initiatives like webinars, live events when you go back to them as well. And pushing from the other side with those Viva approved emails, the calls and meetings. So really putting the reps in the center and doing everything that we can to drive back to them in the most appropriate way. The second was to use that data more effectively. So I've kind of pulled out these key points for you that we talked about on the previous slide. So really making sure that we segment. So here we're targeting the referral treatment centers and a message that is specific to them that they need to know. And then looking at that data-based summary. So you may have seen these kind of emails before. There's a couple of examples here from Fitbit and Rescue Time, where it's literally relaying that data back. Now, of course, we are investigating this as to what data is available, how legal feel about it, what we can and can't do. And it may be that instead of numbers like you see here, we give you a high, medium, or low ranking, or something similar to that. So it's a little bit more anonymized, but it still gives you information that relates to your referral treatment center. So thinking about how we can use our data better. You know, Kite in particular have this data in the Kite Connect portal. So if we're able to, and again, we're investigating it, it would be great to be able to proactively deliver that back to our audience. People love these types of emails. And of course, we've got our basic personalization. We're bringing in first names, kind of personalization 101 immediately starts a little connection in their subscriber's brain. And with this, we've got the segmentation, but we've got those triggered emails as well. So that could be remails to non-openers. So if it's a really important message, perhaps a webinar invite, we might do a resend to non-openers to get that message to them again with a different subject line. We want to certainly encourage the reps and sales teams to follow up with webinar attendees. So whether they attended or didn't, but if they registered, follow up with them through a Viva approved email. And again, we're planning some templates that will be in place for the webinars to make that really easy for the reps to do and get that personal contact again. And then the engagement over time. So it could be that if we know somebody has opened or clicked on specific emails that we've sent, maybe every 3 months or 6 months, we might do a triggered email that says, hey, we noticed you were interested in this subject, speak to one of our reps, do you want more information? That kind of feeling to help drive them through to the next stage and facilitate those conversations. And then the third objective was to optimize our efforts through feedback and analysis. So we have our Gilead modular email template, and we have a function where we can split down a star rating. We need to put landing pages and things behind it. But think about if we wanted to do thumbs up, thumbs down, number ratings. When someone clicks on one of these answers, we then record that against their user profile as what they've answered to whatever it is that you wanted to ask. And of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, monitoring statistics, analyzing for trends, and bringing that in across the different marketing channels so that we can see what's happening and make adjustments based on that. And then testing. So again, as I mentioned, making sure that we have a firm hypothesis. It's something that we can reuse over multiple campaigns. It's not just for that individual email or banner or ad anywhere else. Something that we can learn from and see what works and what doesn't work for our audience, and then track that over time. So that's our kind of kite summary. Let me know if you've got any questions. Obviously, the next stage for everybody is if we haven't got your 2021 plan, particularly for the second half, nailed down, then let's make sure that we do that sooner rather than later. And of course, 2022 POAs are coming. So we need to get those ideas in place and get ahead of ourselves so that we've got a really good chance to accelerate what we're doing through digital in the next year. Does anyone have any questions?
Thanks, Kate. This is Hans. Simple question. How do the TSs are being informed about who has been attending a webinar? How do you streamline that?
Yeah, great question. So at the moment, I believe that is mostly a manual process. So Kirsty, who organizes the webinars, will pull out that list and literally send it across, and then the TSs will disperse it against themselves. You know, when we move to Salesforce Marketing Cloud, for example, it's definitely something that we are thinking about in terms of those webinar users and how we can get it across to them quicker. So yeah, manual at the moment, but would be nice to automate that in some way in the future.
So yeah, to Kate's point, as we roll out Salesforce Marketing Cloud, any email sends will get appended within Viva against the HCP profile. So TSs will be able to see what communication has gone to which, although that's, I should note, that's specifically for email, so we need to do something separately for any sort of events or webinars or other pieces like that.
Yeah, definitely. So we can look at that as part of the Zoom integration. Terry, you look like you're dying to say something.
No, I just to back up, I had a really good conversation with Nina from the Kite team this morning, and we were talking about the referral center strategies, and you know, the field team members absolutely are front and center of that. And you know, before people attend the webinar, what do you do on the day of a webinar to drive that attendance? And then, you know, how do you follow up with those individuals who registered but didn't attend, because you've got a hot customer there who's obviously interested in what you're going to say. And how do you engage those that did attend and what you're going to talk about? So you know, it's really exciting to see that kind of level of pull through in the plans in terms of, you know, at the end of the day, we're using webinars not only to educate, but also to drive the field teams to really have those in-depth conversations. So, you know, it's really great to see these plans, you know, turning into reality slowly but surely.
Excellent. Thank you, Terry. Well, I mean, that's quite a good link through to plans turning into reality there. It's like we planned it, Terry, when we actually didn't. With our modular templates and webinar sub-templates. So hopefully most of you have seen this before. This is our Gilead branded modular template that is in Marketo and ready for us to use at any point. And we have started using this already. So for anyone who hasn't kind of heard about this before, what it does is give us real consistency and a little bit more speed in terms of the email builds across the teams. It means we don't have to recode from scratch every single time. This is ready. We can delete the modules we don't want for that specific live email, leave in the ones that we do, and we've got our email design layout already built. We've just got to plug in our content. So we're trying to get consistency. We're trying to make it really easy for the teams to get those emails built and out to their audiences as quickly as possible. So we have this in the overall Gilead branding at the moment, but what we've been working on with some of the teams is to create their own branded versions. So we've got the general Gilead template. We now have one for Ambizone and Caseton. They are both coded in Marketo and ready for the OAR team to use, which is going through some approvals on the legal text there for us to have as a baseline. And we are also just about to coding literally today, a new version for Vecluri as well to be able to use on all of the amazing COVID communications that we've got planned for the next 6 months or so far. So we're making progress with those. So again, as you see, we've got consistency. We've got those different modules, the main modules we want to use, but you put them into the brands and it brings them to life with each of those different brands. We also have some flexibility with this. So don't think that just because these modules that we've got here are the only modules you can use, that's absolutely not the case. We can add in new modules that we think we're going to be using multiple times over as we need to. So we can have flexibility. If we needed to have a table of results or something like that, we can create that module going forward as well.
Just to add to that, Kate, I mean, I think really you know, for us, we do absolutely have audience members that can be touched by, that's probably the wrong word, can have an engagement with Gilead across multiple teams. So, you know, IB consultants will have the liver team, the COVID team, and also the HIV team. And, you know, traditionally those emails look very, very different. And I think what you can see here is you get the individual elements and you can see that it's a different product, etc. But you can also see there's a theme there as well. And then to add to that even more, you know, once the HTML is done for Marketo, we're converting these into Viva for Viva approved emails. Obviously, when you know the new platform comes, they can easily be converted over to there. And the HEP portal as well, which is being rolled out this year in the UK. This, you know, we got these designs based on the atomic design for the HEP portal. So again, you know, when the customer goes through the different channels and different touch points, they know it's from Gilead, it's very professional, it looks very similar, but you can also have the freedom to look different as well. So for me, I'm really pleased this is coming along really nicely across the teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to mention again, with that kind of flexibility and freedom, the images that you see here are the brand's images. It's part of that brand image library, but we've kind of put them in as places. So when we create that live email, you can choose, yep, I still want to use one of those brand images, which we've now already got uploaded, or we put in the live campaign imagery and these are just places for where we've got those sizes of images. So nice flexibility there as well as that consistency. So this is an example, again, a Kite example of how we use the modular template to then create a couple of live emails. So you can see how, again, we've got consistency, but we're bringing in different modules. And here we've rebranded it in the blue for the Kite Connect portal. But we've got a really nice flow to the email. We've got clear sections. We're driving people down through that content. And I'm going to talk to you, of course, about mobile optimization in a little while. So that's just kind of how it comes to life when the modular template gets used for an actual live campaign with content and images in it. So from the modular template, we then created you all a series of webinar templates, again, just to make it really easy for you, that you can say, I want webinar template 4, here's the content for it, and we go ahead and build it for you. We don't need to recode, it's all ready to go. So we've got different options, different design layouts within those webinar templates. So if you want more information on that, just give me a shout and I can send you the list of templates. But again, oh, I don't know why there's a big purple block on there. You can see this is how it looks in the wild. So when we actually start to put content in, this is how it comes through. So this is a summary email from the OAR team of the webinars that were happening in April. So we sent this at the beginning of the month to give people an advanced warning and let them sign up. And then we do individual invites, sorry, it's partly obscured, individual invites for each of those webinars then throughout the month. Let me show you another example here. So this is from the Liver team. So again, this is another webinar that's been sent out recently. So again, we've got that really nice consistent flow, drawing you down to your call to action. And then here we've got 3 speaker images and profiles. Now we did a resend of this email, we did a second invite and we changed it up a little bit. So we kept the top the same, but we extended the speaker profiles and the images and gave them a little bit more space there as well. Okay, so that's an update on those. So if you would like to use the webinar templates, give me a shout. If you don't have a branded modular template, again, give me a shout and we can get that briefed in and built ready for you. So one of the things that when we were building those templates, of course, we were really mindful of is what happens to those emails on a mobile device, because the screenshots that I've been showing you are all the desktop views, basically. And we know that mobile views are certainly increasing. So this is a little bit of an older graph from 2018 to 2019, where you can see the different rates. So we've got mobile here at 41.9% usage, okay? So more than each of the other 2 individually, although webmail's at 39.9 there. Now, what's really, really interesting is if I jump forward to the 2020 data from this, of course, in 2020, we had a massive change in how people were working. So in this particular example, and this is, generally across all emails sent, we saw that webmail and desktop, those percentages increasing more. Okay, and they kind of went slightly above where we were sitting with mobile. You can see that happening in the middle here as we went into lockdown and started working from home a lot more. These kind of industry statistics are great, gives us a general view, but it doesn't tell us what's happening for your audience. And that's where it's really interesting. And this is where it informs us as to what we can and can't do with your email designs and how we break those elements down. So this is an example of an email sent out from the COVID team. Now, I've pulled this one first because the COVID database that we used was essentially everybody's databases. It was an amalgamation of all of them. So this pretty much gives you an idea of your overall Gilead consented G360 database for the UK, what your breakdowns are. So you can see here that Outlook 2016 is your most popular email client that people are opening your emails on. So we've got 15% of the audience opening on that client. Outlook is the bane of all email marketers' lives. Don't worry, we have built your modular template with Outlook in mind because there are certain things that Outlook does to your code. It basically uses the word processor and it messes up code. So you have to make sure you're building your emails with Outlook in mind so that you can overcome some of those issues. Outlook also has a lot more limited availability. I'll give you this as an example. It's only in the last couple of years that Outlook, in some cases, allow animated GIFs. I mean, we've had animated GIFs for many, many, many years now, right? But Outlook, always behind. So in terms of what you can do with your design, you're much more limited with Outlook. So that is a really key piece of information to know about your audience to inform our strategy and tactics going forward. You've got 11% opening on an iPhone. And then again, we've got another version of Outlook. So 25% just in that top 3 is a version of Outlook. Okay, so most are opening on those kind of desktop devices at the moment through Outlook, but you do have that percentage of mobile users. So we need to bear it in mind. And all of the modular templates and webinar emails have been designed with mobile in mind. Let me show you. Yes.
Quick question. Hi, it's David here.
Hi, David.
I'm just thinking about these statistics. Are these, and I didn't catch it before, are these generalized ones?
These are yours. These are COVID statistics. Yeah,
Okay.
they are yours. So this was the webinar invite we sent out in March. Yeah. And these were the percentages that came back. So I was just saying to everyone, this is a great one to start with because it's basically everyone's audience. So it gives us a good overview of the Gilead UK audience.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, so these are, specific for you. So let me show you another example. So this is the HIV team. So a list from HIV that we sent a webinar email to. Now, look at theirs. In terms of, obviously, this is now a smaller audience, but 37% on Outlook. And then we've got iPhone and Apple Mail. So we're now a little bit more of that audience opening on a mobile device. Okay. What I didn't show you on the last screen was this other piece on the side. Now, it's not about mobile devices, but this links into us helping to provide you with more data and help you to analyze what this data means to actually be able to use it. And what this is showing you is a read rate. So you've all seen open rates before, I'm sure, but what this is telling you is how long did someone stay in the email? So when we add our extra tracking on to the email sends, this is the kind of information that we get back. So you can see that of a read rate of between 9 and 20 seconds, 62% of your audience stayed in this email for between 9 and 20 seconds, which is quite a lot on an email. So again, it's telling us that that audience was engaged with the content that you had within that piece of information. So again, more that we can take in to say, this is how it's working, this is how it's not, this is what we need to tweak going forward. And then again, just to show you one more example from, again, the liver team here. So they've got 47% and 12%, so a massive amount on a version of Outlook and Chrome. So actually for liver, we don't get iPhone until number 4, and that's 10%. So there's a lot more desktop happening there. Okay. So it's always interesting to see those stats, and there's a lot that we can do to use them for to inform that strategy and what we can and can't do, or what we need to change. For example, with the read rates, here we've got 66% opening between 9 and 20 seconds. They're engaged with these webinar emails. If your email, however, you've got 10% there, 12%, I didn't add up all of the others going down in the other versions, but you do have a decent chunk of your users opening on a mobile device. And if they open it and it's all images and they don't have a good connection and that's slow to load, they're going to come out of it or delete it. If it doesn't look good and it's all shrunk and they have to try and zoom in, or they're not going to read it, they're just going to delete it. They don't have time for that kind of thing. So what we do is we use something called a responsive design. So One Health use a responsive design. All of our templates in Marketo are using a responsive design, which means basically that it automatically resizes and moves your content around based on the device that you're viewing on and the width of that device. So whether it's an iPhone or an iPad, it will resize based on those. And that's done using the code and media queries. Because the trouble is, if you don't use a responsive design, your desktop version is just going to shrink. So if you think about something like this that's using a 2-column, if that's not mobile optimized, you're not going to be able to read that information on a smaller mobile screen. You're going to be doing a lot of zooming in, you're going to struggle with the call to action button. We've got to make sure that the content sits correctly on a mobile device. And there are lots of considerations there. You don't need to worry too much about it, but what I want you to think about is when you're creating content to brief into your agencies to build these emails for you, if you get a design back that looks like this, for example, in a 2-column, you know, push back and say, is this mobile responsive? Because it may or may not be, and it's definitely something we've got to consider. You need to make sure that when your emails are being built, we're using a decent font size, so minimum of 14 pixels, and that those sentences aren't squashed together. Think about readability. Think about your call to action and having space around that call to action button so that fat fingers on the screen can actually click on that button and not be selecting some of the other text. That's really frustrating. So it's all about thinking about usability. Now, again, you don't need to worry about these technical elements, but I want to put them in your head so that when you're seeing things back from, whether it's myself sending something back to you or another agency, whether it's a Viva approved email, a One Health email, Marketo email, even if it's a print ad or something like that, you're not going to be obviously seeing it on a mobile device, but all of these things ring true. Have some space between it. One of the things that I have seen a little bit of is where an image is being used in an email and is put in as an image. Now, Jamina and Arlene and David, excuse me, I've grabbed this off of your website just as an example of something, not saying that you've done this because you haven't. But let's say, for example, if we took this piece of information, we were going to put it into our email as an image. How's that going to work on a mobile device? Going to shrink and it's going to be tiny. So what we need to think about is, A, do we need this in as an image like this, or could we recode it? We might have to slightly redesign it or move the information around. How could we better display it that would work when it's shrunk down on a mobile device? Okay. If it's you know, some kind of graphic or graph that has a lot of information on it, could you give like a little thumbnail of that and then link through to see the larger image where they can see it in more detail, because they're not going to be able to see it in your email. So always think about what that content is that you're briefing in, and are the agency going to recode that into something for you that's going to be mobile responsive? So I know One Health do that a lot. Or are we going to link off so people can get more information and see that bigger and in more detail? Okay, so images, I definitely want you guys to think about when you're selecting them, especially graphs and charts and things like that. Because what we really want to do is think about that stacking content. So you can see an email here from Habitat. So way too big header image, but we won't talk about that. You've got your text, and then you've got your 2-column boxes with your calls to action underneath. Now, when you view this on a mobile device, it shrinks. Now, these images still work when they're shrunk, so that's fantastic. There's nothing that's lost with those. And then you can see each section stacks one underneath the other. Now, again, your agency will put into the code how they stack, the order that they stack in, for example. But this is what we need to be thinking about. And again, I know you guys don't see the mobile views of the emails very much, so I want you to just remember this is how, in a responsive email, the template is going to move around and stack. Make sense so far? Brilliant, brilliant. So your agencies, and especially, you know, if you're working with us through Marketo, if you're working with Bryony and Dan and through One Health, you know, we sort all of this out for you, so you don't need to worry about it too much. But think about images, because they're going to shrink, okay? So this is an example of how our modular template shrinks and stacks on a mobile device. So you can see here is the desktop version of these 2 sections, and here you can see how it changes. So this one here is this one here with the overlay on the image. So you see how it then changes for mobile? So it kind of redesigns itself. Okay, so we've coded it to do all of this automatically and to stack automatically. So we've got your back, we've got you covered. Just think about images for me, and think about, yeah, how you would want that laid out in the emails for mobile. Okay, and don't forget, consider mobile, but Outlook and versions of Outlook seem to be your biggest device, so which does limit us somewhat in what we may want to do in the future, but for now, we're absolutely fine. We've got everything we need. Any questions on mobile? Does that just get you thinking about it a little bit? I just want you to be aware. That's it. Just be aware of it. Any questions? This is your time. So yeah, now's the time to ask anything else that you want to.
Kate, you've done some work, haven't you, with quite sophisticated like AI tracking of hotspots visually and where the eyes go and stuff like that. You might well have covered this in previous sessions that you've done, but where does that fit in with the mobile use and stuff? Because where you know, are there any learnings that we can have from other industries there with that? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so there are definitely a couple of elements. So in terms of the tool that we use and the tools that are out there, there aren't any specifically for email at the moment that will do that and anticipate how a user would start scrolling through the emails or start scrolling through a mobile, because again, they're two completely different uses. So we can use it as, particularly on desktop, to give us an idea of that top section and what they'd see, or more from websites and things. In terms of mobile, certainly what we need to think about is that top section of the email. If you've got a massive image there, well, firstly, on desktop and Outlook, you're taking up a lot of space with an image anyway. But again, on mobile, you might be taking up that whole first scroll with an image that's not adding anything to get them to go down to the information. Does that make sense? It's not encouraging them down necessarily. So we need to think about the first 1, 2, 3 scrolls on mobile and how that is going to keep drawing them down. That's the key thing, really. Does that answer your question or not really?
Yeah, no, it does, and perhaps there's a gap here, isn't there, for emails and the technology that's used for how users interface with it. And I just wonder through even generalized market research where you test emails and perhaps filming someone interacting with an email for the first time that is the hospital doctor. That would be really cool to see. That's just off the top of my head.
Yeah,
something
definitely.
that might be useful for all of us.
Yeah, definitely. I think the key thing for mobile is making sure that it's readable and actionable. That's the key thing. If you've got a button that's right up against the text or right up against an image, they're going to really struggle to click on it. If it's stuff that's in a 2-column, it's all just going to shrink. So that is the key thing to watch out for, is making sure that the email is designed so that it's readable and interactable.
And it's impossible to know if emails have been flagged or anything like that. I guess that would be all
flagged. In what way?
I don't know. So when you receive an email, if you think it's important, sometimes you'll flag it, or you might forward it on to a personal inbox or something like that. We know that doctors do that on some occasions, but I guess we're not privy to that data.
No, so the main data that you're going to see is your opens, your clicks, your unsubscribes, your basic data. That data is available as a kind of an aggregate through some providers, but again, that's more B2C. And it's like a third-party service that you need to sign up to. I don't think it would be worth it for you guys, because I just don't think they'd have the coverage to be able to give you that amount of information. But all those things are happening. So the forwards, reading it and then deleting it, putting it into folders, all of those types of things, flagging it, are all happening. But yeah, unfortunately, we have no visibility.
Cool. Thanks, Kate.
That's all right. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions? Was that helpful?
Kate. Can I ask a question, Kate?
Please do.
So I really like the templates and how it's like a module that you can play with. But I'm wondering, how is the process in the UK in terms of who is creating the emails? Because in the Netherlands, we have like the plain text, which first goes to the pre-approval. And then the plain text will go to the agency and they will work on the email design.
Yes.
Who's the one that's putting all those building blocks together.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's pretty much exactly the same process. It's just when we get to that design stage, we can plug the content straight into the email and then send you the screenshot of it from there. We just need the images, the text, and the links. So
Okay.
it's cutting down that design stage effectively. Yeah, we don't need to go through a whole design process, recode everything. We're cutting that down. We know the layout modules that we have. We can pick those, pop in the images that we want. So there may be a little bit of design around images, if you want something specific for that campaign. Other than that, we just plug in and go.
Okay, and do you see that because in the Netherlands, the ones that will initiate an email can be public affairs, can be medical, can be TS, can be everyone in the company, right? So are those people also the ones that can already think of picking those design blocks? Because that's the fun part.
Okay, so in the UK, it would be that they would pick that kind of from a PowerPoint document and say, I'd like this one, and this one, and then we go and build it. Most people in the UK don't have access to Marketo. It would only be the specific users. So yeah, we would do that in the UK.
Okay, thanks.
That's okay. Okay, fantastic.
Kate, maybe one question regarding the collection of the data, because I think it is a pretty sophisticated approach to collect data and then do some sort of customer segmentation. And you have, like, let's say, customers that have that are digitally that have affinity for digital measurement, and I was wondering how you collect this data. So do you basically do a G360 report and then just check out which customer clicked and opened the email and then share it with your TSs, or how do you do it?
Okay, so the follow-up email to anyone that's engaged with previous emails, in this case, we're planning through Marketo. So we would run a segmentation in Marketo that said, show me anyone who opened or clicked on these emails, and then we would load them up to send out that follow-up email. You could absolutely do it through Viva and through the TSs as well. I mean, the quickest way to do that would again be probably for us to create a segment in Marketo and then export the data to give to the TSs. I'd have to speak to the G360 guys to see how they could do it through there. But from our side, we would do it through Marketo.
All right. Are the Marketo emails currently displayed in the Viva timeline?
What Viva timeline do you mean?
Well, I think, I'm not pretty sure, but it was planned that the TS, of course, they can see what kind of emails they send out personally. So, of course, Viva approved email. But I thought it was in the pipeline that also Marketo emails, which were sent to their customers, are displayed in their Viva timeline. But I'm not sure if that's currently implemented.
I'm not sure. I know we've got some dashboards that we're speccing in at the moment from a marketing side, and I know that there's one for Viva as well that Joe Blackmore is working on. And I believe when you go into a customer record, you can see which emails from Marketo they've been sent and interacted with. So I believe it is on the customer records there, yes.
All right, thanks.
That's okay. Hopefully that helped. Okay, guys. Feel free to send me any examples of emails that you have that you want us to do a creative review on in these sessions. If you want us to review anything, send it over. If you've got any topics you'd like us to cover, like we've done mobile, subject lines, calls to action, let us know and we'll create a training for you. Hopefully that's helpful, guys. Feel free to go or to stay. I'm here for questions if you need still. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.